this video, all we're working on is getting the dog to focus on the food scoop, which is going to play the act of the bucket. The food scoop is full of the dog's favourite treats, and all we're doing is moving it away from the body. As soon as he looks towards it, we're marking it with a yes or a click, and then we're delivering the treat. The reason we move it away from the body versus holding it right in front of us is we want to ensure the dog is actually looking at the food scoop and not directly at us. If there's moments where the dog doesn't look at the food scoop, continues to stare at you, wait a couple of seconds, bring the bucket back to you, and then reproduce again. We always want to set our dogs up for success and not set them up to fail. So take your time with this part, because you really want it to be very strong. You want the dog to understand it's the food scoop, and if they look at that, that's what's getting the reward. Once you've done a few repetitions, ensuring that the dog is staring at the food scoop and understands that if they look at the food scoop, rewards come, you can progress to getting them into the position you want. For Yoshi, this dog, we're going to be getting him to offer it down on a mat, which he already does naturally because he enjoys lying down on his mat. So all we're doing now is we're rewarding him for going onto his mat and offering him a treat, and then we will progress to introducing the scoop again. But right now we just want to make sure we're getting him into the ideal position so we don't have to chop and change later on. I like to lure the dog into position, so lure them onto the mat and then into a down, just to ensure that they understand what they're doing and that you're not getting them in odd positions all the time, because for grooming programs they need to be straight and stationary so that you can move around and perform the groom. Next part is going to be the exact same as the first. We're going to start moving the scoop around and ensure he keeps offering focus towards it. This dog offers chin rests, so I'm going to reward that and heavily reinforce it because we want him to be in a relaxed state. If he wants to perform a chin rest, it's the best way for him to say, I'm uncomfortable with something. It's important also to ensure the dog gets regular breaks so that they're not becoming frustrated having to stay in the same position. The next point is going to be introducing your second person. You can do this grooming program on your own, but I find it's easier to involve a second person so that you can really mimic a grooming environment. All we're doing in this video is having a second person sitting to the side or to the back of the dog and rewarding him for offering focus on his food scoop while they're there. Okay, so now next part is handling. First of all, you need to set the dog up to success, so we're going to be adding fake handling first. So all the second person is doing is they're putting their hands and hovering over the dog's body. And if the dog stays focusing on the scoop, we're going to mark it with the yes and reward with the treat. If the dog at any point lifts their head and turns to see what the person's doing or gets up and wants to walk away, you remove the hands and wait a couple of minutes. As you'll see in this video, this dog is becoming increasingly sensitive to the hind left quarter, so we decide to avoid that area. That's why it's really important with grooming programs that you make a list of your dog's desired areas of touch and you start with those areas first, not an area the dog is sensitive to, because you're already then going to start off failing. So once we readjust the plan, the dog is able to offer the chin rest to the side and get his reward for the pseudo touch, which is the fake touching along this dog's body. Do a few repetitions of this just so that the dog really understands that it's handling we're doing. You can also use a cue if you want to say that you're about to be touched, but most dogs understand they're going to be touched anyway. So it's not something that's really important, but for some people they like to cue it themselves. The next step is going to be light touching, so same as pseudo touches, you're going to start actually just rubbing him really lightly along the body. Same thing, avoid those areas you know he's a little bit tricky with. Normally for most dogs that's the face and feet. For this dog, because he does have issues around his joints and his hips, we're going to avoid those areas as well. And then you work up to those areas as you become more confident with the program and the dog understands nothing's actually going to happen to them. Yes. We're now going to introduce pieces of equipment. So the first thing is going to be your grooming brush. As you saw in the video there, we produced it, let him have a sniff of it, and once he was happy enough, he went back to staring at the scoop. So we marked it, got a treat, and then we put the brush down beside him. Next part is going to be the exact same as you did with the pseudo touches, the light handling and all of that. You're going to do it with the brush in your hand. If you lift the brush before the dog is ready, they're going to turn and look at you. So you have to wait for them to offer that chin rest or to offer that focus on the food scoop, and then you lift your brush and start to handle. If they lift their head at any point to turn and see what you're doing, you put your hand back to the ground and you wait for them to offer focus. And this is just making it about choice, so that that dog understands that if they don't want to be touched, they have complete control of the session. We really want any training session, but especially grooming or veterinary procedures, to be a conversation between dog and trainer, dog and vet, or dog and groomer, to ensure the dog is completely involved in the session. As you can see here, it is a little conversation. So she starts brushing, he says, I wasn't really ready for that. So he lifts his head and he waits. He has a look around, has a sniff, and then says, okay, actually, I think I am ready to be groomed. And then he'll offer his chin rest again, allowing the person to start the grooming and set him up for success. If we continue to try and groom him when he wasn't ready, we'd be pushing him and making him have to react in a way that he really doesn't want to. And that's why a lot of people will see aggressive behaviours when they're doing grooming, because the dog really has no choice, because we put them in a really unfair situation. Whereas with this, it's a conversation, so the dog can say, actually, I think I've had enough today, and you've had a really successful session.